Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Zoe, and you're listening to Climbing in Heels. This show is all about celebrating extraordinary superwomen who will be sharing their incredible journeys to the top, all while staying glamorous. Today with me, we have founder and CEO of the Sculpt Society, the incredibly talented Roup. Megan speaks about how she shows up and stays authentic for her online community, the struggle that is real, that is being pregnant, and her struggle with body image in general and her dreams for the future. Megan and I also talk very candidly about how times are finally changing. And if you have a large social media presence, you don't just have to post the perfect pictures or what I like to call the highlight reel. You can post your pregnancy scars, your struggles of the week, whatever it may be, and just that keeping it real is just so incredibly important. I am so excited for all of you to listen to this episode. We had such an amazing conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. It's a good one. It's funny because I got to know you, which I'm sure you probably hear this all the time, but I first saw you on Ariel Charnas's. And I just remember who is this cutie that is making these people dance around and do these things? The first thing I thought was oh my God, I can never do that because I'm not coordinated like that. And I'm also I'm also not confident enough to kind of do that. But yet you had this big smile on your face and this beaming energy. And then I got to know you. And I was she's such this sort of, ray of sunshine. But I also sensed your doubts and kind of insecurity about change and building and growing and moving forward in your next steps. And then, of course, motherhood. So let's talk about that. So let's first start a little bit where did you grow up and who on earth were you and what kind of kid? And were you awkward? Were you incredibly popular and outgoing, or were you super shy and awkward, or neither?
Yeah, I was super shy and awkward. My parents are South African. I moved around a lot as a kid. So I was born in Orange County, but from the age of 5 to 13, I lived in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, which is a tiny little town on a lake. In between, we moved back to Cape Town for a year, back to Idaho.
Cape Town and Idaho? I cannot imagine two more different places in life.
Well, and then we moved to Santa Barbara for my high school. So it was, I like to say I rocked up my freshman year in Birkenstocks and was I'm cool. And people were you are not cool, sister. So yeah, talk about just so much change all at once for someone who is naturally introverted and shy. And so, I think I always leaned on movement, specifically dance. I grew up dancing and it came really naturally to me. And I fell in love with it. And I think that was a sense of confidence for me growing up because it was something that I could do, that I could be confident in, and I could pour myself into. So I really grew up dancing, and I was, classical ballet trained. And then in high school, I was on the dance team. And
so
then,
good for you.
College.
Really, I find a lot of my kids' girlfriends dance, and it's such a nice outlet, I think, for them. And
and a change and a pivot for me from ballet where you're really by yourself, right? You're in it by yourself. Whereas, on a dance team, you're with friends. And that was my first experience with different modalities, with dancing with friends. And then I went to school in New York. I was at NYU's
That's amazing, by the way. That's so impressive. That is no joke. I read that. I was she's really smart. This is wild.
Yeah, I got the token minor in media study to appease my parents who are you want to do what with your career? And so, I really felt like that was my path. I was going to be a professional dancer, and that was what I was meant to do. And for the time, that is what I felt really called to do. But people always ask me where did fitness start to happen in all of this? And it really began as a side hustle. So I had graduated, I was auditioning, and I actually worked multiple jobs. I was dancing professionally. I worked in fashion as a fit model. So as a production fit model, a lot of people don't know that side of fashion, right? Where you're working with designers and how clothing fits. And, you do, obviously.
It's very important, by the way. Very important.
Very important. And I did that for 8 years. And then I also was teaching fitness on the side, and never really thought of it as I thought I would go into it just for the paycheck. but I really like quickly fell in love with it because so much of my 20s were consumed by negative body image and an unhealthy relationship with food. And I think such a missing puzzle piece for me and the overall healing journey for me was finding a way of working out and a movement practice that felt aligned and felt joyful. And so once I figured that out and was able to work with other women in a movement practice and share how to build confidence within their bodies, I mean, it really cracked me open.
It's like therapy.
But in a way I was like, oh my gosh, this is really what I'm meant to be doing. And I really felt that early on, but I also felt like I had so much more to learn and to educate myself on. And so I like dove deep into boutique fitness in New York City and really like was into reformer Pilates and yoga and dance cardio and Sculpt and was just trying to like dive deep into all of that. By the way, I know this is like a long one.
No. I'm so fascinated by it. And I want to talk about it because the one thing that's interesting, I was talking to a mom friend of mine and her daughter just won like a dance competition and whatever. And I would say for every mom friend I have with daughters, they're in dance. I would say 90% of them are in dance. And I said, well, keep an eye on her. Really keep an eye on her because I already have 50% of those girls already have eating issues starting from like the age of 9. And my friends that are grown now that were dancers in ballet or on Broadway or every kind of dancer, they very admittedly talk about their body image issues that they struggled with for their entire career. And I actually think, you know, and it's obviously not your job to do so, but I do think that's a code that needs to be worked on to crack how to somehow celebrate dancing because it's so incredible and such an amazing outlet for young women and men, honestly, but like that it does ultimately become about your body somehow because you're in a freaking leotard all the time.
Yeah. And I will say what's so interesting is I get very similar messages, I would say almost equally as much from former dancers, but also just former athletes, like former like D1 female athletes who were in a very strict, you know, whatever, volleyball, whatever it was. And so I think it's just, I mean, I just think it's growing up as a female, but if you are in a competitive landscape of any athletics at all, there is definitely, you're hypersensitive to your body. And so absolutely, I think what I am trying to do now is create within the Sculpt Society a really safe place where there is no triggering diet culture language, where we are not talking about a thigh gap or six-pack abs, and really changing the conversation and being a disruptor in the fitness space that is so toxic for women. How can I be a new voice for women to come in and feel like, wow, okay, it's actually okay for me to be myself, and oh gosh, I'm not hearing all of these triggering messages about burning calories or whatever it may be. And so, yes, if I could do anything within what I'm doing with the Sculpt Society, it is to change that behavior that we see time and time again within fitness, within all of it.
And I think it's a never ending conversation, honestly. And I was going to say, like, I think of Sculpt Society and I think with your background and just seeing it and knowing it and living it and breathing it. And now I think, you know, having a second, you know, healthy pregnancy and talking about what that's like. And it's funny because I very ironically did love being pregnant, which is, I think, shocks everybody because I know. And I think it's, I think I'm more jealous
that I'm just jealous that you enjoyed it. I wish I could enjoy it.
The first one
more.
I really enjoyed. The second one was really a pain in the butt because I had a toddler and you're just, it's, you know, trying to run while you can't breathe. And like so that was a different ballgame, but I more enjoyed the process of feeling a human kicking around in my body. I actually was so endlessly fascinated by that. And I also think like I was medically fascinated that we were growing a human. And I would look at my husband and see how jealous he was that he could never know what this feels like, you know, and I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah. But like, it's a pain in the butt. Like and I also like loved afterwards when I was like, yes, I'm not pregnant anymore. I can like have a Diet Coke or drink coffee. You know what I mean? Like you could do the things that like you might enjoy that you're like, oh my God, it's going to hurt the baby. So, I do love that freedom, but I do think it's such an important conversation to have going along with body image is I think the conversation around pregnancy. And I think it's okay to be like, I hate this. And like, by the way, do you know how many friends I have that are like, I would have 6 kids if I didn't have to carry them because I hate it. And it hits our bodies differently. You know what I mean?
But I also think what's so fascinating is like when we start to have these more open and honest conversations, which they're starting to happen, but slowly, so many people are like, oh my gosh, you feel like that too. And you start to realize you're really not alone. Right. And so many women are going through that. And so I think whether I'm on social media or within my workouts, it's so important to me that I'm just showing up and really expressing myself of like, I hate the word authentic, but like really like authentically being like, you know what, I'm struggling today. It is not all like perfect. And like, this is the situation. And then me actually getting the support I'm feeling from my own community being like, oh girl, like I hated being pregnant too. And like, you can be grateful to be pregnant, but like, you don't have to enjoy it. And so, just trying to have more of those open conversations and actually just feeling so supported by
I think it's great. And I actually think people have an expectation that people with a big platform are honest now, because I don't think people want to see the highlight reel anymore. I think actually people want you to be real with them. And I think the more real you are, the more comfortable people are, the more they really are attracted to you and what you have to say, because they're like, thank you for not giving us this glossy artistic photo and showing us like, oh, you have a brutal scar or you have like, whatever it is, you have melasma, you have like whatever it is. Right. Yeah. And I think that that's great. So I want to go back for a second. So you go to NYU, you come out, you're like, okay, this is what I want to do. And now you launch Sculpt Society in what, like 2017 or something, right? Okay.
17.
And were you scared?
Yeah. I was, here's the thing. Like I was so in that fitness world, but I was also really frustrated because I felt like boutique fitness was so intimidating for everyone. It felt overwhelming. It didn't feel warm and welcoming, specifically dance-based fitness. Like, unless you were a dancer, like you weren't walking in and doing a class. And
Hell,
like, this doesn't have to be so complicated.
No. Right? I'm working out in front of people. So like, I'm like, God, no, I barely want to work out in front of myself. No.
So I felt like the class I always wanted, the community I always wanted didn't exist. And so that's really the reason the Sculpt Society was born. And I launched in 2017 in New York. I started teaching out of these incubator spaces that were starting to come out where you could go in, you could teach your class and you could cultivate your community and you didn't have to deal with brick and mortar. So I'm so grateful for those studios that existed. Yeah. And I started to really build, I mean, I'm talking like 2 people show up and
paying customers.
And you know what? That's what I said. I was like, I know if I can get those 2 people in the door and to experience what I can deliver with the Sculpt Society, they're going to tell their friends and word of mouth is going to spread. And I'm also going to utilize social media. And the combination of those 2 things really did happen. Like people, 6 months, 9 months down the road, classes were filled, and it was the start of this really exciting stage for me with the business. Incredible
and terrifying. Like it's just terrifying because so had you met your husband at this point? You guys were already together.
So I met, yes. He has been around since like pre-Sculpt Society days, and like me just like ideating and thinking about what I wanted to do. And, I would like literally test like class flows on him. I love that. He was like my guinea pig, but it was so exciting because like, I really felt like what I had in this class was special. And it was that the next stage was, okay, how do I scale this? How do I build this into something bigger than just a class? And so, I'm a millennial. I knew social media was important. And so utilizing that in a way, getting influencers and celebrities and models through the door, getting, starting to get them to chat about it. And then also treating my community like I always talk about Sally Joe with 10 followers. Like she was coming to my class and she was feeling seen. She was feeling successful. She was not feeling overwhelmed in my class. And she was feeling that warmth that I feel like the Sculpt Society has. And she was telling her friends. And so like, I really believe like the combo of those two things really allowed me to build that community. That's in New York
amazing.
Initially.
And then, okay. So then what made you move out here? What made you move to LA? Cause I remember when you were doing that and we were texting each other and you were like, I'm scared. Should I do it? And I was like, yeah, come out. And now I feel like you have this whole life and community here.
I know. I do remember chatting with you. I was so nervous to move to LA. So I went to high school in Santa Barbara and my parents are still there. And so, being away from them was really hard. I was madly in love with New York City, but I didn't ever know when the time was right for me to move. And then a year into the pandemic, I also got married.
Pandemic marriage, pandemic pregnancy. I'm dead.
I was like, I think it's time. It's time. Like this is the time, I think, to make the move. It made sense for us. And so, it's been 2 years and gosh, I was in New York for 15, so I still have a ways to go with LA.
It's hard. Listen, I'm from New York. I'll live New York forever. And I actually didn't miss it until the past year, funny enough, which is so wild. And maybe it's because my kids are a bit older and I can wrap my head around it again, and that life.
But I think you have it right because you go out for
I go for 2 months. Yeah.
So that to me is like in my ideal world, I would be bi-coastal, but like go to New York for a month at a time and have both worlds. I mean,
and you still have your New York based community too, right? So how does that work?
Yeah. So I have 2 amazing trainers based in New York, but 99% of the business is online. So we are, they're streaming from New York live. Yeah. They're recording content live. I record content in Los Angeles. And I think, now with the pandemic, we're on the other side. I think everyone's behavior is, I think, a mix of both, right? I think people have discovered the at-home fitness workouts that work for them. And they know that it's saving them time, money, all the things. And then maybe they're sprinkling in an in-person class here and there, but the behavior is no longer fully in person. I think moving forward online will always
because it can work. Exist. And I actually think it's funny. I actually think it's really beneficial for you as well as the clients, it's amazing because you can do it anywhere, which is beautiful, I think that gives you the ability to grow the business and actually scale it beautifully,
Well, and exactly. But I think before I launched the Sculpt Study app, I was teaching 7 days a week, privates and classes. And I was like,
no, it's not sustainable.
I can't do this. How it's not sustainable. And so the platform has really allowed me that freedom to grow, to reach more people and to grow the community.
So I wonder too, if pregnancy is hard for you just psychologically because your job is literally moving your body and it's obviously not easy and you have to be much more careful, obviously, when you're pregnant. But I think, but I do think it's ultimately very helpful because you can speak from such an authentic place to women that are going through what you're going through, right? Because,
Yeah, I keep reminding myself that, the days where I listen, getting dressed pregnant is not fun, let alone putting spandex on and being in front of the camera and working out. But on those days, it's reminding myself that it is so important to me. I have a really robust pre and postnatal program from my first pregnancy, and I'm continuing to add that now. But just thinking about the women who are showing up to work out with me who are also pregnant and that they get to see my body changing.
Yes.
Because who wants to, I'm sorry, if you are pregnant or postnatal, I don't want to see 6-pack abs. I don't want to see a trainer who looks perfect. I want to see a real woman who is going through it myself. And so,
or at least who has been through it and can really speak to it, because I found that even having female doctors when I was having my kids, nothing against male doctors, but for me, it was so nice to speak to my doctor who had been through what I was going through twice, not just saying, oh, well, this can happen because it's like, oh my God, I had that with my first, it's like, oh, phew. I'm sure just knowing you the way I know you, I feel like you're constantly thinking about sort of your next move a little bit. Like, I don't feel like you sit still very easily. And I think you're constantly trying to sort of, perfect, of course, what you're doing. But I also think of yourself as I think of you as being very humble, but also having a real willingness to sort of like, try the new thing with like, without, I don't know. I love that about you. Like, I kind of feel like you're always like, I want to do the next thing.
Well, I think what's fun is that, we are not VC backed, we are bootstrapped, but what that gives us is the flexibility to really listen to our community and pivot when we need to, try new things when we need to. And I think, for us, it's really important that we are there for women at every stage of life. So we just launched a bridal program.
Wow.
We have our pre and postnatal program. We've got some fun programs coming in the fall to help support women. So it's really thinking about, even this summer, we're going to be launching like dorming.
I was going to say, like, I feel like there's a real struggle there in college for these girls. I hear it from a lot of my friends' kids a lot, to be honest, because their bodies are changing a lot.
And oh my gosh, my freshman year of college was,
it's like dominoes at every hour.
But also, and then you think about the toxic diet culture, like conversations of like those 19-year-olds. So how can we be there from college all the way through every stage of life for women? So thinking about that programming. And then I think too, just continuing to build out, right? Like, I always think about your workout doesn't stop at your workout, right? Like,
it's like a lifestyle.
My members are going on. Yeah. Like it's wellness chats, it's conversations. It's how else can I be there to support my community and, having some fun around that too. So we have some exciting things.
No, it's okay. Well, it's funny because as I talk to you, I have so many thoughts and ideas about what you can do and like what your community would, and I'm sure you're thought of all of them, but it's funny. I'm just thinking about it because I think you do come from such this 360 perspective. And also I think just given your experience, it is funny because I do find that I've been talking to so many women who were dancers, their girls are dancers, what you do with it after and what it becomes. And then sort of, just that sort of emotional perspective that they sort of take with them into adulthood as a dancer. But I do think it's important because I think you can mentor a lot of these younger girls and speak from this perspective of like, I've lived it. I've been there. This is what I did with it. This is how I pivoted. This is what I've seen. This is what I know does not work. This is, so did you have a mentor in all this, or were you just sort of like alone on a ship trying to figure this out?
I'm really jealous of the people
me too,
out there.
By the way, mentors.
I think I really could have used one growing up. I don't know. I look at like a Jane Fonda, not that she's a mentor, but like I think of like the career of like a Jane Fonda, right? Like that is really inspiring to me, but I never had someone close to me that was like, I was really able to bounce ideas off of, because also my brain, I'm super creative, obviously coming from that dance world, but I love marketing. I love business. Like I could talk to someone about building businesses all day. And that's really interesting to me. So I think it's I wish I had a mentor, but I think exactly what you're saying. It's like, how can I be there to be a light in a very toxic culture that we're all living in? How can I give women the skills to get out of that cycle of thinking that they need to work out for hours a day and that cycle of thinking that they need to be on some rigid diet, and show women how it can actually the freedom on the other side, that even now, a former like over exerciser, I can work out for 10 minutes, go on with my day and feel amazing. Like that freedom is so important for me to share with others, because I think we're so trained in this world to think that we have to do so much to feel good. And we really don't.
No, I think that's probably trying to fill something else, as you know. But, I think ultimately, like, as you build a business and coming from being a creative person and loving business, like, what have you found to be the biggest sort of challenges that I know for me, it's like I trip over myself a lot. And also, like you said, like, you're building this on your own, right? You're not funded. You don't have people at the table telling you what to do. So like, what do you find to be sort of the hardest things, the things that like keep you awake at night?
I think for me, it's even just like my personality. Like I'm definitely a perfectionist. Mm-hmm. I'm a type B person, but I'm a perfectionist as well, which is kind of counterintuitive. I think for me, it's actually really working through belief systems that unless I am growing the business, growing on social, I've somehow, like, unless it's like doing 100%, I've somehow failed. Which is all a belief system I've somehow told myself.
Well, it's all what is a measure of success, right? Like, what is your measure of success, right? Like, what does that look like to you? Because it's funny, I've had a lot of women on here that, you know, very candidly, it's funny. I had someone on the other day and she was like, I don't need $1 billion. I don't need I don't need to keep going. She's like, I don't have an addiction to that. She's like, I actually am so happy in this place that I'm good if I do well where I am here. And I was like, wow, what does that feel like? You know what I mean?
I'm working on in therapy, that exact feeling.
Right.
Because I do think it's toxic because it becomes never enough. And and then I end up working 7 days a week and not living life. So the downside of owning your own business.
It's a very entrepreneurial state of mind. It is.
Yeah. I think hiring a team is super important, right? That allows you to do and grow and have smarter people around you. But I do think, it's also, you know, luckily my husband's amazing at managing people. That's a skill I'm definitely still trying to learn and hone in on. But yeah, as our team starts to grow, it's just making sure also we're all virtual. So like feeling connected and yet in different cities. I think we're all as business owners trying to figure that out too. And also I think just continuing to educate, like I don't have a business background. I do have instincts around marketing and instincts around business, but I am such an advocate of just continuing to learn and knowing that I'm not the smartest, like I want to learn from really smart people. So just continuing those conversations and just problem solving, which is as a small business owner every day, like the amount of fires we're putting out every single day. And just, I think those are things that like keep me up at night of just like, am I doing the right things? Am I doing enough? And how do I continue to grow?
It's interesting to that point because I was with someone the other night at a dinner party and they're one of the most successful couples I probably know and deserve to be so very much. And I was like, you know, how are you? I haven't seen you in like a month or so. And he's just like, do you ever just get tired of putting fires out? And I'm like, yes. And I was like, you know, I think it's just being a CEO or being an entrepreneur, having your own business. I think it's just what it is. And I talk about that very loudly because it's funny. My sister, while very successful, is very open about the fact she never wanted to be a CEO. Very clear about it. She didn't want to be, she didn't want the final say. She didn't want to be the final answer. She just didn't. And I remember being like, I don't understand that. And I fully understand it now. Like I fully understand and it's not for everybody. And that's so okay. Yeah. But it's interesting. And I think, so wait, are you speaking openly about what is inside your tummy right now? Like, are you having another girl?
Oh, yeah.
What do you have? That's why you feel so crappy, by the way. My boys were so good to me in my stomach. Boys are much easier on mom in the stomach. Wait, so that's interesting though, because my last question for you is, would you encourage or discourage your girls to dance?
My husband and I talk about that all the time. And he's a soccer player.
You guys are so sporty. You're so active. Jesus.
But he's reluctant based on my past, but to me, it's like sports in general, dance. And like, I think it doesn't really matter what she's in. It's really making sure that I, as a female, her mother, is a constant example around food and body image. But it transparently petrifies me because I obviously know when she goes to school, I don't know what she's being influenced by. And social media and all of that. So I don't know that it matters if I think it's any competitive sport or art.
Well,
really,
I mean, you've been there. I mean, I think people put it on dance because that's the most known. I think dance, gymnastics, ballet specifically, I think is the one that's so out there known, but interesting about athletes, because athletes to me seem so like strong and, not so like slight and frail and teeny and invisible. And, they just seem more like strong, for lack of a better term, that you think it's kind of the opposite in a way, but interesting. And I think that conversation, I do think I think you're right about that. I think it's very much, it's very much what they learn from mom up to a certain point. And then you have not a lot to say, right? We have a lot to say, but
I will say, even, my mom was an amazing example. And so my body image and relationship with food was actually more about, this is a whole nother podcast, but that was actually about, I was in a transition period going from high school to college. And it was about numbing what I was going through, that I was So of course. It actually, it had nothing to do with my actual body. It was the only thing I could control. And so my mom, I never saw my mom diet. She always talked great about her body. Like she was.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think it's not just you, but I think it is interesting. And it's like, I talk to so many moms that are like models or dancers or all the things. And it's like, would you tell them to do it? Would you encourage it? Would you discourage it? And ultimately you can't. Like, ultimately they're going to do what they want to do and you can't keep them from it. Right. So here we go. This parenting thing is no joke. And by the way,
I'll be like calling you in 10 years.
Boys are not immune to it. Boys are not immune to it. They have vanity. They've got all the things. I'm already hearing my 12-year-old talking about 6-packs and like, it's crazy. So I think, and as you know, social media exacerbates this. Okay. So what happens with Megan and Sculpt Society in the next like 5-10 years? Or do you not even ever think about that and just go, let me just crush the now and deal with that when it comes?
No, I think in terms of like 3 years.
Doesn't 5 feel like 100?
Being a fitness. I'm like 3 feels like, okay, like that's, I can conceptualize. I think in the next 3 years, it's continuing to be really a disruptive force in the fitness space. Continuing to, when people think of dance, cardio, and Sculpt, I really want them to think about the Sculpt Society first and continuing to build the community and really hone in and speak to the community and listen to what they want and just really provide valuable content for them. And just continue to grow.
I love it. I love what you do. I love watching you do it all because, I'm lucky to know you personally, but I also just, I don't know. I love your energy. I love your authenticity and I love what you've built. And I think that just keep continuing, obviously, to do what you're doing, but also I think, to be honest, because I think people really love it, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and I have to say, Rachel, I am always so blown away by you. I have been to a lot of your dinners and brand dinners, and I just feel like you are such an amazing advocate for other women, lifting other women up and encouraging other business owners who are females. And I just want to say to you, like anytime I talk to you, you always give amazing advice. And I'm just so grateful to have you in my life and so thankful for
I'm so happy to do it. And to your earlier point, like wishing you had a mentor, I think the reason that I am is because I didn't have that. And I think it's like I've almost sort of in a way just wanted to be so the opposite and be there for women and good women, that's a thing. Cause we all know not everyone is. And, so I think it's, for me, I look at it as let's take the ones that are good and really want this and work really hard and just are really good people and deserve to win and deserve this success. And sometimes I think we just need to hold each other's hands and be like, okay, I'm scared too. I'm scared too. No one has this totally figured out.
I know. No one knows what they're doing. No one has it figured out. But I will say having people like you who can have open and honest conversations and feel supported, it makes you feel less alone.
And I'm rooting for you. And I can't believe you're having another girl drop her at my house anytime. I will take the girls. I will take the girls anytime.
Be careful what you wish
0
for.
to 9. And then after that, they're yours.
Amazing.
Love you madly.
Thank you so much,
thank you for being on, honey. This was so fun. It's that time in the show when I answer 2 listener questions. So let's see what we have today. Okay, first question. This is really funny and one that honestly is probably so common and never asked. My fiance's mother just sent me a photo of the dress she bought for our wedding, and I really dislike it. She didn't involve me in her shopping process and usually has a good sense of style, so not sure how to navigate this one. This is a really tricky one, and I can usually problem solve pretty much any fashion disaster. However, this is a very fine, dangerous line to play with because your relationship with a mother-in-law is like one that you absolutely cannot jeopardize. So what I would say is use your husband, use your fiance, go through him, have him tell her if he's comfortable that he does not love it. If that does not work and that's not an option, I would say that you can say, oh, it's really pretty. What else do you have? Or are there any other options? If there aren't any, then I think you have to go through your fiance. And if not, you just have to not like it and just swallow it and be okay with it because you don't have to wear it. You're not going to like the pictures and it is what it is. But it's not worth starting a war at your wedding because that will set the tone for the rest of your marriage. So that is my advice. I'm sorry if it's not the answer you actually wanted, but that's the real answer. Okay, and this is a really funny question. Do you get nail extensions or do you naturally keep your nails long? And the truth is, I've never had nail extensions, and I had very, very short nails for about 15 years because my nails grow so long so quickly, and I kept cutting them down. And over the pandemic, I decided, let me just grow them and see how long they'll actually grow. And ever since then, I've had long nails and it's so much fun. I love it. I love tapping them on my computer. And it's nice when I'm sort of anxious, I sort of play with them. But it's really fun, especially given, the Hailey Bieber nail trends of it all. Makes it more fun. I don't believe in nail extensions only because they break my nails. Like that sort of treatment on my nails really damages them. But don't forget to submit your questions for next week's episode. All you have to do is DM us your questions to @ClimbingInHeelsPod on Instagram, and I just might answer them. Want my style advice from season to season? That's exactly what you'll get when you sign up for my membership, Curateur. Every 3 months, I'll send you my favorite fashion, beauty, and lifestyle products, all valued at over $400 and yours for just $125 per season. Everything has been selected to make you feel extra chic and confident in spring, summer, fall, and winter and elevate your everyday while letting your personal style shine through. And when you head to curateur.com, that's CURATEUR.com, you'll receive an exclusive offer. Thank you so much to Megan for coming onto the podcast. I still don't know how she does it all. She's taking a dance class in front of people. She's teaching. She's doing all of the things. She's constantly reinventing her workouts and trying to really make a very safe place for women of every body type, shape, pregnant, pre, post, during, all of the things. But I think the fact that she created this incredible platform and community is very, very impressive and moved across the country and is now pregnant with her second child. She's just very impressive. And I love that we talked about, her fears in raising girls. And I think just the struggles we have as girls in general with body image and everything else, kept it pretty real on this one. So I hope you learned a lot. If you want more Climbing in Heels content, follow me on @Rachel Zoe and @ClimbingInHeelsPod on Instagram for more updates on upcoming guests, episodes, and all things Curateur. And I will see you next week. Mwah.